Hello and welcome to the M is for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abby Halberstadt, happy wife, mom of 10, Bible-believing Christian. And on today's episode, we're going to dive right back into our 100 mom things in honor of our 100th episode, where I foolishly and somewhat optimistically thought I would be able to fit all of those 100 things into one episode, but quickly found out I needed to split it into two. Before we dive into that, I want to highlight our podcast sponsor, Voetberg Music Academy, which is such a fun and revolutionary way for your students to learn guitar, mandolin, ukulele, fiddle, and piano online to share lessons between siblings. And you can use my code MSForMama20 for 20% off each month that you're enrolled. In fact, VMA wants to reward your students' diligence with badges mailed directly to their door or even cash as they participate in the 6 Songs of Summer Challenge. So if that sounds like something fun for your student, be sure to sign them up at VoetbergMusicAcademy.com and use the code MSForMama20 at checkout. And without further ado, we're going to dive right back into our 100 Mom Things series. I hope you guys enjoy these and they are an encouragement to you today. I also get asked all of the time what names I would name my kids if I had any. Well, how do they word it? What are names you love that you're not going to use? Well, I don't know for sure if we're going to have more kids, so I'm not going to share a name that I might use. But these are names that I enjoy very much, but either because they just don't quite fit with the rest of our names or because Sean doesn't like them or I don't like them and he likes them, we're not going to use them. So the first one is Milo. We already have a Shiloh and a Theo, and that was just enough O's at the end. And I didn't need a Milo and Shiloh. I would never say that correctly. No one would ever be called the right name. Marigold. So Marigold comes from an L.M. Montgomery book called Magic for Marigold that I read several times when I was preteen and teen. Absolutely loved. And technically I have used it. I named the baby that we lost last summer Marigold, but it's not a child that's going to be walking around on this earth, sadly. So it's not one that I'm going to use again, obviously. And, or one that you will hear me referencing a ton. So Marigold, love that name. Fiona, I love the name Fiona, but it just isn't quite right for us. Max is a fun name. And Maximus, I think that's super cute. And it just wasn't quite right for us, but also we have a first cousin named Max. So, Zion, I love the name Zion either for a boy or a girl. I love the name Finn. Interestingly enough, all of our names that we actually call our children end up being 2 syllables. Some of their names are longer than 2 syllables. None of them are shorter than 2 syllables. And the names that we actually use for them are all 2 syllables. We didn't do that on purpose, but by this point, I don't think I could change it. So Finn is off the table for that reason alone, but also just we have friends who have children named Finn and it just didn't work out. I love the name Oliver. That's a fun one. And then Amelia and Charlotte. These were 2 of the names that we considered for Evie and Nola, whose full names are Evangeline and Magnolia. And at the time, neither one of them were super popular 12 years ago. They weren't like off the radar, but they were not as wildly popular as they are now. I think Kate Middleton named her daughter Charlotte, and Amelia is a really popular one. So I'm glad we didn't go with them, but I think they're beautiful. And then the last one is kind of out there. And we have too many names that sound similar to this to use it, but I love the name Ever. Ever, either for a boy or a girl. We have an Ezra and an Evie. So obviously that wouldn't work, even though it's 2 syllables, but I just think Ever is a really fun name. Okay, another category that I get asked about all of the time. What do you feed your kids when they just are snacky and you don't want to feed them junk? What's the list of kind of approved and available snacks in your house? As we have moved more and more toward being an ingredient heavy family, my kids have become more and more proficient at making things if they want something other than a quickly available snack. And so it is not unusual. Literally right now, as I'm recording this at 3:30 in the afternoon, my son is downstairs and this delicious smell of chicken searing off in a pan in butter is tormenting me at the moment because I'm quite hungry. But so he's making himself food at a random time of day. He's 18 years old. This doesn't bother me. It's going to be fine. He'll clean up after himself. But that's kind of harkens back to I'm not too worried about whether or not he's going to eat a full meal at dinner. He's hungry now. He can make what he wants. But if it comes down to the snacky things that are available, number one is going to be fruit. I always have berries in the fridge. I always have apples, always have bananas. We often have a pineapple we can cut up. We have frozen fruit for smoothies, which would be another one. We make smoothies all the time. Veggies. I'm not as good at this, guys. I wish I were. But sugar snap peas, carrots, things like that, we do have those in ready availability, and my kids do eat those. They prefer fruit. I won't lie. Guacamole or avocado cups. So I keep avocados in the house at all times, and I will make guacamole very regularly, sometimes every day for a whole week, sometimes 3 times a week. It's just a really common thing, and it doesn't take very long to make, to mash up some avocados and throw some seasonings and lime in there. And my kids all love it. So guacamole is always a good option in our minds. And then at Costco, I'll buy the little cups, and my little boys, especially Titus and Toby, will eat those happily as a snack on its own or with their lunches. Nitrate-free lunch meat, turkey meat. So the nitrates are chemical preservatives, and so I get the kind that doesn't have those. And so my kids will roll those up, in just little rolls and eat those as a snack sometimes. As well as cheese, either those little fresh mozzarella cheese pearls, the little balls, are Shiloh's absolute favorite. He loves those. We'll eat a bowl of those. Strangely enough, I don't even know if I should put this on the list because this is not all of my kids, but I've got several that will just eat a bowl of beans or a bowl of corn. It's kind of random, but I do keep cans of those in my pantry. So if they're just feeling peckish and they're like, "Can I have some beans?" I'm like, "Yes, you may have some beans." Homemade baked goods. So Evie and Nola, I think I mentioned this. If I have not mentioned this yet, I don't know why I wouldn't have, but I'm also trying to remember the context in which I would have mentioned it. But Evie and Nola are releasing a baking book in 2026. They have a contract signed with my publisher, Harvest House. And if you haven't seen that on social media, or if I have not mentioned it here, that's happening. And they bake all the time. They have since they were like 8 years old. And I kid you not that we have baked goods in our house almost every single day. I would say 6 out of 7 days a week. So, I don't want my kids eating massive amounts of refined sugar, but considering that they're so much better than what my mom grew up eating for breakfast every morning, which was a Little Debbie's packaged cupcake, I am okay with it. She tells me that now as someone who raised us kind of health foodie, and we ate like homemade wheat porridge after she ground her own wheat berries for breakfast. So it cracks me up that she did that complete about face. I think I'm somewhere in the middle, but, we have, homemade muffins, or they made crepes yesterday. They made pancakes this morning. They'll probably make brownies tomorrow, and they can have that for a treat after dinner, or they can have it for a mid-afternoon snack. I'm fine with that. Not in excess, but I'm pretty fine with that. Popcorn. We'll either pop our own, or I'll get the kind that has not a ton of salt on it. It's non-GMO. It's called Skinny Pop. We get that sometimes. I'll get a big bag of it at Costco. My kids love popcorn, especially my littles. We do have a subscribe and save on Amazon for Lara bars. They're still expensive, but we will get the cookie dough Lara bars, which they're just sweetened with dates. They have like 4 ingredients in them. So those are really good. And then we will make our own peanut butter, like protein balls with chia seeds and oats and peanut butter and honey. And we'll put flax seeds in there and some mini chocolate chips. And those are super easy. They take practically no time to whip up. And my kids all love them. And then homemade bread. My girls are bakers. So, just pull a loaf out of the oven and everybody just stands around and eats it with butter, and it's gone in minutes, but such a treat. And we do that fairly regularly. And then homemade salsa. I actually think I have this recipe. It's so easy, saved to my Good Eats highlight on my Instagram, m.is.for.mama. If you need a good fast salsa recipe, you can literally make restaurant style salsa in 5 minutes in your blender. So that, plus on the border chips, which are not great for you, but that's the type that we usually have in our house, is an easy snack. So, that's not the exhaustive list, but I did say I like to keep things pretty simple, and we just do not do complicated snacks or very many packaged snacks. So that's our list. Another question about food that I often get asked is what my top 10 go-to meals, like the ones on repeat, You don't have to think. You don't need a recipe. You're just whipping these out because you're tired and you just need something on the table. Okay, so our top of the list is so basic, but it's just spaghetti. I make it with ground turkey and I make my sauce from scratch. Very simple recipe that I learned from my mom. I've been using for years. And make some noodles. I get the organic noodles, the organic spaghetti noodles from Costco, and throw it all together. And it's just with salad and bread. And my kids absolutely love it. They gobble it up every single time. Taco soup is another one that it feels like it just takes minutes to prepare. I brown my meat with some onions and some spices and dump all of the beans and the sauce and the diced tomatoes and the broth in and let it simmer with some more spices. And that's when I can get on the table, especially with an Instant Pot, in like 30 minutes flat. My kids have been loving this recipe I make with chicken breast, potatoes, and green beans. It's a 1 skillet recipe. I have a really big skillet. It's like a 19-inch Lodge cast iron skillet that I can fit a meal that's big enough for my entire family with leftovers in. And I make a bunch of chicken, like 5-6 pounds of chicken in it. And it's not quite big enough to get all of that in there at once in pieces, but I can sear them off and then add them back into the pan. And I do a combination of broth and sour cream and Dijon mustard and some spices. And my kids love that one and gobble it up. Super easy. Don't use a recipe. It never comes out exactly the same way, but it's good. A similar one that I make is with turkey patties, like ground turkey patties that I'll do into little turkey burgers. And I'll do sour cream and broth and spices and onions. And then we'll serve that over rice. And then we also love taco salad, which has a different meaning for different people, but I do ground beef and a lettuce base and tomato, and we put Fritos in there. That's the crunch. It's so good. And Catalina dressing. Neither one of those are any good for you at all. You could substitute better options, but they sure do make it taste good. And cheddar cheese and scallions and ranch style beans. That's just guilty pleasure. So good. I grew up with that and love it now. Turkey burgers with sweet potato fries and all the fixings. Awesome. So easy. Can get that done in no time flat. And most of my kids love that too. And we always make guacamole to go with that one. I have a chicken and veggie pasta that I make. Just boil the pasta, throw the chicken in that giant pan and add some heavy cream and some, every veggie that I have in the drawer, basically. I'll do bell peppers, sugar snap peas, onions, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, if whatever I've got in there, zucchini, squash, anything I've got in there that can cook in a big pan with some chicken and some yummy sauce and a bunch of seasonings. And then I will serve that over pasta. I can get that done usually in about 30 minutes. My kids don't all love this. I've got about 2 that are not huge fans, but most of my kids love Chipotle style bowls where I make a big pot of bone broth rice. And I make salsa chicken, which is where I literally put chicken in an Instant Pot or a crock pot or even a casserole dish in the oven and cover it in salsa. You could do homemade or you could do the picante style and that come in the big jugs. Pour it over the chicken. It makes it really flavorful and really moist. And then you shred it all and serve it with rice and beans and corn and salsa and guacamole and cheese and whatever else your heart desires. We love that too. Pot roast, such an easy one. Once I've got it assembled, just stick it in the oven and we do a bunch of veggies and the meat itself, and then usually serve that with salad and bread. My kids always love it when I make Greek food. That one's a little more time intensive. I will dice up a bunch of chicken, maybe not dice. I will cut chicken into like bite-sized pieces. I will marinate it in olive oil and lemon and oregano and salt and garlic and all this yummy spices. And then I will make up a little side salad of cucumber and tomato and mint. And then I'll make some tzatziki, yogurt to go with it. And then I will, and if you're Greek and you're like, listen, you are butchering this. I'm not saying I'm not butchering it. I'm just saying it tastes good to us and we enjoy it. And then I'll make a whole pan of feta potatoes where they have lemon and olive oil and garlic and all oregano, all those lovely Greek flavors. And we'll roast those in the oven and then sprinkle them with feta cheese and toss them when they're crispy. Super yummy. And maybe I'll serve some pita on the side.
That's one of our favorites. And then if I am just needing something super easy that my kids will gobble up, I will will bake a bunch of chicken breasts, and then, or I can put them in the Instant Pot with some broth and shred them and make my own chicken salad. I can either add all the mixings in, or I can keep it just chicken salad for the little kids, just the chicken and the mayo and the seasonings. And I'll serve those on croissants. And those are just some go-tos. I'll probably have some guacamole on the side because that's just how we roll. Those are 10 of our family's favorite easy meals that are relatively healthful and fill everybody up. A lot of times we have leftovers. I'm forgetting some really obvious ones. I know I am, but that's 10 to go on if that helps you out. Okay, another category that I get asked about all of the time, we just have 3 categories left, is habits that I would recommend or that work for me. These are more like habits that work for me. I think I would recommend a lot of them, but your top 10 habits may look very different than mine. These are just things that have served me well through the years. Number 1 would be personal Bible reading. I think that the times in your life where you are too tired, genuinely don't have enough sleep to be getting up way before your kids and reading Bible reading and do that personal Bible reading aloud to them and discuss it with them is perfectly legitimate and still counts as personal Bible reading. You personally did it with your kids. Exercise, that's a big one for me. Moving my body helps me so much with physical, just keeping up with my kids, having mobility to be able to do the things that I need to do with my very busy life, keeping me mentally sharp and getting stress out of my brain and my body, just so many benefits. And I have been an athlete or a fitness instructor or something my entire life. And it's a huge, huge part of my life. A load of laundry every morning. I don't do this. I shouldn't say every morning because I don't do this every single morning, but I do find that my days run more smoothly on the very, very common occurrence when I walk through our laundry room is on the other side of our bathroom, which is connected to our bedroom. So I walk through our bathroom, put my contacts in, use the restroom in the morning, and then I am walking through the laundry room next, which is probably a good thing because it reminds me that I need to do this. And I usually change out a load of laundry or start a load of laundry. And if there's one not already in there, which is hardly ever the case, it feels like. And that just sets me up for not getting through half the day and going, well, shoot, now I've got to start at 4 instead of having started in the morning. Because I usually end up flipping at least one load of laundry more than the one I did in the morning. And I get behind if I start in the afternoon instead of the morning. So that helps. Another one I've already mentioned as a household rhythm, but something that helps me as well is when my kids are doing their morning and evening chores, I do something that I need to do as well. So for me, that's usually something else related to laundry or putting clothes away in my room that are my own personal clothes to put away. Or I might have to do a little bit of work on my phone, but I'm not zoning out while my kids are doing their chores after breakfast and after dinner. I am trying to I don't have to try hard. I'm finding ways to be productive right along with them, even if it isn't working physically beside them, although sometimes it is. Time outside. As much as possible. I live in a climate where I can do that most months of the year, if not every month of the year to some extent. And so I know that's easier said than done for some of you, but time outside, I find that the older I get, the more I need sunshine to stay regulated with my nervous system. It calms me down. It helps, it helps detox. It helps boost our vitamin D, which helps our well-being in general. So yeah, big fan of time outside. Even if for only short periods, 10 minutes outside does wonders for my brain. And so if I can eat lunch on the porch steps or read aloud to my kids outside or lie down in one of their hammocks for 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be a long time. Having audiobooks or Bible reading going on in my ears, like if I'll just have one earbud in, I feel like my time is spent better if I'm doing something productive or even entertaining, if it's not like a self-development type of book while I am sweeping something, scrubbing a toilet, flipping a load of laundry, So those moments when you don't have to be actively engaged teaching a kid or talking to them, which they come. I know if you have only small children, it may feel like you've got somebody in your ear at all times, and having even one earbud in one ear is not possible. This is a more recent habit that I've developed, but I just find that that's really helpful to me. Another big one that's similar is while I'm doing chores, and I have multiple friends that will listen to this and say, I can attest to this, I will voice memo someone. So I don't talk on the phone hardly ever. In fact, I avoid it at all costs if possible. However, I do voice memo my best friend, my assistant, my pastor's wife, a friend that I have here on the internet from Instagram who lives in England. And then they'll voice memo me back, and we're able to have this conversation with our hands free while we are doing useful things for our families, making dinner or whatever. And I have found that to be so life-giving because it's a way of having conversation with other adults without having to go meet them at a coffee shop. I'm all for meeting people at coffee shops if there's time, but when there's not, it's a really cool way of investing in friendships that I think that modern technology has supported that I'm a fan of. So that's a habit for me. And there are times that I will talk through things with my best friend, and she won't necessarily like respond back to me on every point or anything, but it will help me so much to hash them through. Like I start recognizing, you know what, I'm letting this get to me too much because I'm being selfish or because I'm really tired and I'm blowing it out of proportion. As I talk it through with her, I'm able to say, okay, that helped. And I have things in perspective, and I don't necessarily need to go on a rampage about this. Not that I ever do need to go on a rampage, but it helps so much. Group dates with my kids. I do one-on-one time with my kids. If they're able to jump in the car and go run an errand with me or go to lunch. But I often find that there's always somebody else that wants to come, and that the kids that are coming on specific group dates are happy to go together. So we do mama-daughter dates. Sean will do daddy-daughter dates. I'll do mama-son dates. I just did one 2 days ago. And the kids really enjoy it as a special group outing. And we prioritize those as specific events. And then we prioritize the one-on-one interactions more organically throughout the day, or kind of just as they arise as an opportunity. So for example, the other day, Della was able to come with me to a fitness class, and then we were able to go do something afterwards, and it wasn't a planned thing, but of course I took advantage of it when the opportunity came up. But the habit is focusing on, we're going to do this group of people, we're going to do this group of people, and they love it and look forward to it as well. Another habit that I've developed is grocery delivery or grocery pickup. And that saves time for me because someone else is doing my shopping for me. But also it helps me to plan for the week because as opposed to being in the store, even if I have a list of things in the store, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm not a big impulse buyer, but it is possible for me to say, oh, I'm going to impulsively buy this, or I'm going to get distracted here. I'm going to spend too much time in this section, or a kid's going to have a case of the gimmies. And I have found that the habit of planning out just some basic ingredients that I know I can make into meals throughout the week, and making sure that we have enough fruit or whatever really helps me to organize our grocery situation. Now, with so many kids in the house, making their own food throughout the day, and having an adult son that lives at home that has his own bathroom. Sometimes I'm not always, because he's editing this and thinking, we've been out of trash bags for a whole day. Your grocery system is falling apart, mother. It's not always perfect, but I have actually found the habit of sitting down and placing that order each week, or sometimes twice a week if there's a second smaller one that I need to place, really helpful to organizing my brain and saving time. And the last habit that I've been way more faithful in the last several years, to some extent because I feel the need for it more than I did 10 years ago, is kind of something I've already touched on, prioritizing sleep, but also prioritizing supplementation. So I am taking certain things each day to help with my joints, to help with my energy levels, to help with mental clarity, just stuff that feels more essential at this point. And those habits of doing those first thing in the morning, I have a supplement drink that I drink called Happy Juice, and I drink it by 9 a.m. every single morning, pretty much like clockwork. I look forward to it. I like the way that it tastes. And my mom, who is the supplement queen. She researches all the things. She knows all the things. She kind of had to because she had to take charge of her health when it was really struggling years ago. And doctors were not really giving her much help other than wanting to put her on prescription drugs that managed her symptoms. And so she really became proactive in her health. And she's always telling me which things I should be taking and what to do. And she's a wealth of information. But sometimes, considering her supplement routine is extensive and she takes them all separately, I get overwhelmed as a busy mom. And so having certain things I can do that combine a lot of those elements in one thing that I drink, a bunch of powders I can put in one cup, that kind of thing, helps me. So that habit has become really ingrained lately. And I can see how helpful it is to all the things, both physically and mentally and emotionally and all the things. So I would go back and tell 10 years ago me that I should have been doing those things and being more intentional with my nutrition and all of those things. But I don't know if 30-year-old me would have listened. So, we do the best with what we have that we know now, right? Another category that my friend Amy, who was actually on my podcast way back when, she is a therapist, and it was a podcast on therapy and triggers and trauma and all of that, and kind of a biblical response to that, if you want to go look that up. But she suggested a category of phrases or themes that appear all of the time in your parenting. The first phrase you've heard me say many times before, I think, either on social media or here on the podcast, and I've already mentioned it in this podcast, and it's be a blessing. This is our family motto. We actually have it etched into a brass plate that's on the corner of our dining room table, along with all of our names and this phrase that Sean and I say to each other that essentially means I love you, and our wedding date. So that's really special to us and really important to the ethos of our family. Is the family motto, be a blessing. And I've already explained what that means, but essentially eyes up and out, looking for opportunities to pour into others, not just looking for your own comfort or pleasure or instant gratification. Hard is not the same thing as bad. Believe it or not, this is more of something that I have put out into the world than something that my children would say that I say a lot. But the theme of hard is not the same thing as bad, whether I am saying hard is not the same thing as bad, which would get annoying, quite honestly, pretty quickly, is very common in our family. Like, I know it's hard. I understand. It's okay to be sad, but it doesn't mean that this is a terrible, no good, awful thing or a terrible, no good, awful day. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to, what my mom would always tell me, lean into Jesus, dig deep into Jesus, put your roots in Jesus and not in any other hope. And so it is a theme, even if I don't necessarily say that exact same phrase to my own children all the time. This is a huge theme in our house right now. And you will hear me saying this to the twinbies all the time. What are hands for? And they'll say, helping. And it's usually right after they've punched each other in the jaw. So hands are for helping, not hurting, is something that I say to my younger children all the time. In that same vein of thought, think before you act is so basic, but it is something that children struggle to do. Again, the not fully developed prefrontal cortex. And there's just so many things that I see them do that are not malicious, but they're careless. And so taking teaching opportunities to say, like, if you had paused just for a moment and thought that through, would your decision have been the same? And why or why not? So think before act would be the condensed version of that. Doing everything to the glory of God. That's based in scripture. And you will hear me often saying, like, you have an opportunity to do this in such a way that brings glory to God. And the way that we would bring glory to God is doing it with excellence and diligence, not with laziness or a grumbling attitude, which leads us right to do everything without complaining or arguing, which is also scripture. This doesn't mean you never have an opinion about anything. It doesn't mean that you don't ask questions or respectfully suggest, like, could we do it this way instead? Because the way you're asking me to do it it's a lot more work, and that's not a bad thing, but I could do it this way instead. And of course, for reasonable requests like that, I will consider them. And if it makes sense, I'll be like, yeah, do it that way. That's fine. That's, that was a good way to use your noggin. But that's not arguing. That is advocating for yourself with civility. And there's a difference. And complaining is just, scuffing your toe along the ground, saying, oh, I don't like picking up toys. I had to do this yesterday. We are saying the Bible calls us not to do this. It calls us to look for opportunities, to thank God for the responsibilities that we have, which leads us right into the next one, which is responsibilities before privileges. Our kids hear about the fact that they are to prioritize their responsibilities before they are to receive their privileges all the time. And I realize those are big words and are more kind of fitted to ages, I would say 7+ or 6+, but you can boil that down into smaller words. We work before we play. Like, you could tell that to a small child and they could understand that. Or at least we often work before we play. We emphasize integrity a lot, and we will ask our kids, what is integrity? And I don't know I probably do know the definition of integrity according to a dictionary, but I will tell you what our family's definition of integrity is, which is pretty close, I think. And my kids will tell me integrity is doing the righteous thing, even when no one is around to watch you and make sure you do it or give you a high five if you did it. They wouldn't say it in so many words, but that's essentially what it boils down to. And I would put it this way, being the same everywhere else as you are at home. Or switch it around, being the same at home as you are everywhere else. If we can offer our kindness and our generosity and our patience and our friendliness to the world, but we can't offer it at home, then it's kind of a counterfeit version that we offer the world. And it's what I was talking about earlier is probably one that stems from the fact that we're probably only going to spend a couple of hours with that person, and we can hang for a couple of hours. But when it comes down to it, we don't have the integrity to keep that up in truth with people that are closest to us. So that's something that we emphasize a lot. We like to talk about the thing that I said earlier, siblings are built-in best friends. That's how we are to view them. And the world does not view them that way. And so we are constantly looking for ways to flip that narrative and to emphasize what a blessing it is to have so many built-in best friends. And of course, our kids don't act like their siblings are built-in best friends all the time, but by and large, they are asking each other to go play out in the yard, to play soccer, to do pickleball together, to bake together, to watch movies together. There is a lot of cooperation. It's not perfect. I will never claim that. And there are times when they bicker and disagree and are unkind and call each other names and raise their voices and use sarcasm and all of that. But I'm not expecting perfection. I'm just encouraging righteousness. And that is the goal. So we do that consistently, and there won't be perfection, but there will be fruit. A couple of silly ones. I call my children child chicken all the time. So I had this student who was very challenging when I taught high school Spanish, and she had some funny phrases that she used. And theirs was the whole class that she was in. It was a class of freshmen, and they were frustrating. They got my goat. It was my second year of teaching, and it was the only class that I ever remember just walking away from in such defeat and utter frustration that angry tears were rolling down my cheeks, or I was trying to keep them from doing so. I actually taught at the same school as my mom, and I was walking to her classroom because she was on break to just sit on her bookshelf, low bookshelf. I didn't climb up to the top of the bookshelf, and just sit there and vent and grit my teeth because I was so at a loss of how to try to convey any love of learning to these kids that were so resistant to it. And I do know some kids that I got through to and some that I probably didn't, because we're not going to have 100% success rate with anybody, including our own children. However, or we're not guaranteed that. But this girl was so smart, and she was so bright, and she had such funny ways of putting things. And I found her so enjoyable in some ways, and then other ways, not so much. So it's funny that I use this phrase that she used in class, because she'd go, child chicken. And I thought it was hilarious, but also I was the teacher and did not need to be called child chicken. But it's what I call my kids all the time. And I think it's just because there's a part of me that wanted to redeem something out of that really broken situation with these kids that were struggling to function in life, much less learn any Spanish in freshman year of high school. And so it's become kind of this endearing thing, even though I remember that she was frustrating. And so I'll be like, child chicken, what in the world are you doing? Or child chicken, do you think that's a good idea? It's not a negative context even. My kids love it. Like it's a very endearing phrase, but that's one that's unique to us that I got from a weird place. And then the last one is also kind of from a weird place. And I will tell my older kids this because my younger kids don't really know what it means. I will say sounds like a number 5 to me. And I usually say it like this, sounds like a number 5 to me, because I had this English teacher in college who was from Arkansas and had this lovely drawl. And she had a list of things that you needed to know for her class. She was very organized and very regimented, but also very kind. She was a great teacher. And number 5 on her list was a personal problem where, for example, if you showed up to class and you said, oh no, my printer wasn't working this morning and I didn't get my paper done and I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have an extension. She'd go, sounds like a number 5 to me. Which was just her rather humorous and succinct way of saying you should have planned ahead. You knew that this was due. You knew that you should have printed it out, not the moment before you were supposed to be there, but the night before at the very least, or a couple of days before when you had time to go get printer ink or whatever you needed. And you were going to have to suffer the consequences of not planning ahead. So I usually only say this in jest, but sometimes I will say if I have a kid in a tizzy about something. I mean, I would not say this to a kid who was truly in a tizzy because it would kind of be salt in a wound, but to a kid that's kind of flapping around about something else, sounds like a number 5 to me. And they'll be like, yeah, I should have planned ahead, or, that kind of thing. So that's a phrase that I learned from a teacher that I still use. Okay, friends, we are down to our last category of 100 things. And this is a long podcast. I knew that it would be. And I was telling Ezra that I was like, well, it's just lists of things. And he just kind of looked at me like, you're never just going to be able to list everything. He's right. There had to be commentary. That's just who I am. But I want to leave you with a list of beatitudes of 10 things that I would encourage each mom to do as she invests well in her family and her kids specifically. And I'm going to try to just read these without too much commentary. Be patient. Your kids are not adults yet. We have to be patient with adults too, but expecting our kids to have the same level of anything that we have, even when they're older teenagers, is just not fair. Be kind. This is what we want for ourselves too. And we are the main people that will model this for our children. Be diligent. Future you will thank you for it. Be compassionate. Even though we know our children well, and we never know exactly what they're going through or what's going on in their heads, and they're being able to look back on the times when you just received them with a hug and soft words of comfort rather than a lecture will be invaluable. Be self-controlled. They're watching how we spend our time. They're watching what we do. We, again, are their first model here. And if we want them to be self-controlled, we have to practice that for ourselves. Be honest, even about our own faults. It can be easy to try to pretend like we're perfect because we think that our kids will not respect us or will have bad habits if they know that we fail sometimes. But honesty sets such an example for our kids and helps them to have realistic expectations of what it looks like to fail and to repent and to carry on. Be lighthearted. I know that we all have different personalities, so it may take some intentionality if you tend towards seriousness, but putting on music or playing with your kids outside in the yard or joking with them or quoting movies with them, remembering a mom that was able to be fun and lighthearted will be a huge gift for your kids. Be intentional. Paying attention always trumps passivity. Be humble. No one gets it right all the time. Usually we don't get it right the first time. And that's a good thing because, again, our goal is not to present some idea of perfection to our kids. Our goal is to point them to Christ. And if we can say, not I, but Christ in me, he must increase, I must decrease. And we can actually do that in practical ways with our words and our deeds each day. That will have a lasting impact for the rest of our kids' lives. And I speak that from personal experience as having a mom who really did that well for me. I hope this whole podcast has been an encouragement to you of practical and simple ways to lean into the incredible privilege that it is to steward eternal souls and to feed earthly bodies and to protect young minds and to foster developing personalities. It's a lot, and it's hard work, but it is such good work. If you enjoy the M is for Mama podcast, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and follow along, maybe share with friends, or even leave a review. And if you want more content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, be sure to follow along on Instagram at m.is.for.mama.